Sheikh Ahmed Ismāʻīl Ḥasan Yāsīn was a Palestinian imam and politician. He was a founder of Hamas, an Islamist Palestinian paramilitary organization and political party. Yassin also served as the spiritual leader of the organization. Hamas gained popularity in Palestinian society by establishing hospitals, education systems, libraries and other services, but it has also claimed responsibility for a number of suicide attacks targeting Israeli civilians, leading to its designation as a terrorist organization by the European Union, Israel, Japan, Canada, and the United States. Yassin, a quadriplegic who was nearly blind, had used a wheelchair since a sporting accident at the age of 12. He was killed when an Israeli helicopter gunship fired a missile at him as he was being wheeled from early morning prayers. His killing, in an attack that claimed the lives of both his bodyguards and 9 bystanders, was widely condemned, and many observers suggested that the act would negatively impact the peace process. 200,000 Palestinians attended his funeral procession. Early life: Ahmed Yassin was born in Al-Jura, a small village near the city of Ashkelon, in the British Mandate of Palestine. His date of birth is not known for certain. According to his Palestinian passport, he was born on January 1, 1937, but he claimed to have actually been born in 1938. His father, Abdullah Yassin, died when he was 3 years old. Afterward, he became known in his neighborhood as Ahmad Saida after his mother Saida al-Habil. This was to differentiate him from the children of his father's other 3 wives. Together, Yassin had 4 brothers and 2 sisters. He and his entire family fled to Gaza, settling in al-Shati camp after his village was captured by the Israel Defense Forces during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. Yassin came to Gaza as a refugee. When he was 12, he sustained a severe spinal injury while wrestling his friend Abdullah al-Khatib. His neck was kept in plaster for 45 days. The damage to his spinal cord rendered him a quadriplegic for the rest of his life. Fearing a rift between his family and al-Khatib's, Yassin initially told his family that he sustained his injuries while playing leapfrog during a sports lesson with his school friends on the beach. Although Yassin applied and attended Al-Azhar University in Cairo, he was unable to pursue his studies there due to his deteriorating health. He was forced to be educated at home, where he read widely, particularly on philosophical matters and on religion, politics, sociology, and economics. His followers believe that his worldly knowledge made him one of the best speakers in the Gaza Strip. During this time, he began delivering weekly sermons after Friday prayers, drawing large crowds of people. After years of unemployment, he got a post as an Arabic language teacher at an elementary school in Rimal, Gaza. Headmaster Muhammad al-Shawa initially had reservations about Yassin, concerning the reception he would receive from the pupils due to his disability. However, according to al-Shawa, Yassin handled them well and his popularity grew, especially among the more scholarly children. His teaching methods reportedly provoked mixed reactions among parents because he encouraged his students to attend the mosque an additional 2 times a week. Having a regular job gave Yassin financial stability, and he married one of his relatives, Halima Yassin, in 1960 at the age of 22. The couple had 11 children. Involvement in the Israel-Palestinian conflict: Yassin subsequently became involved with a Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. In 1984 he and others were jailed for secretly stockpiling weapons, but in 1985 he was released as part of the Jibril Agreement. In 1987, during the First Intifada, Yassin co-founded Hamas with Abdel Aziz al-Rantisi, originally calling it the paramilitary wing of the Palestinian Muslim Brotherhood, and becoming its spiritual leader. Yassin opposed the peace process between the Palestinians and the Israelis. He supported armed resistance against Israel, and was very outspoken in his views. He asserted that Palestine is an Islamic land consecrated for future Muslim generations until Judgment Day, and that no Arab leader had the right to give up any part of this territory. Yassin's rhetoric did not distinguish between Israelis and Jews, at one point stating that reconciliation with the Jews is a crime. But however, a video of him was captured stating that he had no problem with the Jews as people, and his conflict with them is political, and not religious. Yassin's inflammatory rhetoric was often scrutinized in the news media. On one occasion, he opined that Israel must disappear from the map. Yassin's declaration that we chose this road, and will end with martyrdom or victory later became an oft-repeated mantra among Palestinians. In 1989, Yassin was arrested by the Israelis and sentenced to life imprisonment. In 1997 Yassin was released from Israeli prison as part of an arrangement with Jordan following the failed assassination attempt of Khaled Mashal, which had been conducted by the Israeli Mossad in Jordan. Yassin was released by Israel in exchange for 2 Mossad agents who had been arrested by Jordanian authorities, on the condition that he refrained from continuing to call for suicide bombings against Israel. Following his release, Yassin resumed his leadership of Hamas. He immediately resumed his calls for attacks on Israel, using tactics including suicide bombings, thus violating the condition of his release. He also sought to maintain relations with the Palestinian Authority, believing that a clash between the two groups would be harmful to the interests of the Palestinian people. Yassin, however, was repeatedly placed under house arrest by the authority. Each time he was eventually released, often after extended demonstrations by his supporters. Yassin criticized the outcome of the 2003 Aqaba summit. His group initially declared a temporary truce with Israel. However, in July 2003, the truce unraveled after a Palestinian suicide bombing of a Jerusalem bus left 21 people dead. Israeli forces killed 2 Hamas members in retaliation. On September 6, 2003, an Israeli Air Force F-16 fired several missiles on a building in Gaza City, the Gaza Strip. Yassin was in the building at the time but survived. Israeli officials later confirmed that Yassin was the target of the attack. His injuries were treated at Shifa Hospital in Gaza City. Yassin responded to the media that days will prove that the assassination policy will not finish the Hamas. Hamas leaders wish to be martyrs and are not scared of death. Jihad will continue and the resistance will continue until we have victory, or we will be martyrs. Yassin further promised that Hamas would teach Israel an unforgettable lesson as a result of the assassination attempt. Yassin made no attempt to guard himself from further attempts on his life or hide his location. Journalists sometimes visited his Gaza address and Yassin maintained a routine daily pattern of activity, including being wheeled every morning to a nearby mosque. Reem Rashia's suicide bombing at the Erez crossing on January 14, 2004, which killed 4 civilians, was believed by the Israeli military to have been directly ordered by Yassin. Yassin suggested that the suicide bomber was fulfilling her obligation to make jihad, and Israel's deputy defense minister responded by publicly declaring that Yassin was marked for death. Yassin denied having any involvement in the attacks planning. Involvement in attacks on Israel. Yassin was a founder and prominent leader of Hamas, which is regarded as a terrorist organization by a number of national governments. Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon characterized Yassin as the mastermind of Palestinian terror, and a mass murderer. The Israeli government repeatedly asserted that Yassin was responsible for a number of terrorist attacks, which targeted and killed a number of civilians. They accused him of being behind all the attacks perpetrated by Hamas against Israel. Israel said the targeted killing was in response to dozens of suicide attacks by Hamas against Israeli civilians. According to an Israeli government website, Yassin was the dominant authority of the Hamas leadership, which was directly involved in planning, orchestrating and launching terror attacks carried out by the organization. In this capacity, Yassin personally gave his approval for the launching of Qassam rockets against Israeli cities, as well as for the numerous Hamas terrorist bombings and suicide operations. In his public appearances and interviews, Yassin called repeatedly for a continuation of the armed struggle against Israel, and for an intensification of the terrorist campaign against its citizens. The successful operation against Yassin constitutes a significant blow to a central pillar of the Hamas terrorist organization, and a major setback to its terrorist infrastructure. In his statement Yassin declared that Hamas did target Israeli civilians, only in direct retaliation for the death of Palestinian civilians. In his thinking, this was a necessary tactic to show the Israelis they could not get away without a price for killing our people. Assassination. Ahmed Yassin was killed in an Israeli attack on March 22, 2004. While he was being wheeled out of an early morning prayer session in Gaza City, an Israeli AH-64 Apache helicopter gunship fired Hellfire missiles at Yassin and both of his bodyguards. Before the attack, Israeli F-16 jets flew overhead to obscure the noise of the approaching helicopters. Yassin always used the same direction every morning to go to the same mosque in the Sabra district that is 100 am from his home. Yassin and his bodyguards were killed instantly, along with 9 bystanders. Another 12 people were injured in the operation, including 2 of Yassin's sons. Abdel Aziz al-Rantisi, Yassin's deputy, became the Hamas leader after his assassination. Reaction to assassination. Kofi Annan, UN Secretary-General, condemned the killing. The UN Commission on Human Rights passed a resolution condemning the killing, supported by votes from 31 countries including the People's Republic of China, India, Indonesia, Russia, and South Africa, with 2 votes against and 18 abstentions. The Arab League Council also expressed condemnation, as did the African Union. A draft resolution condemning the extrajudicial execution of Yassin and 6 other Palestinians, as well as all terrorist attacks against civilians, was brought before the United Nations Security Council and vetoed by the United States, with United Kingdom, Germany, and Romania abstaining. The United States explained that the draft resolution should have condemned Hamas explicitly following its sponsored suicide bombings in Ashdod the week before. The Palestinian Authority declared 3 days of mourning and closed Palestinian schools. Hamas official Ismail Haniyeh suggested, "This is the moment Sheikh Yassin dreamed about." The Hamas leadership said Ariel Sharon had opened the gates of hell. Hamas called for retaliation against Israel. About 200,000 people took to the streets of the Gaza Strip for Yassin's funeral as Israeli forces declared a national alert. The assassination of Yassin also led to the fact that Hamas, for the IRST time, named as the most popular movement in Palestine by the residents of the West Bank and Gaza Strip 2 weeks after the assassination. Abdel Aziz Rantisi was announced as the new head of Hamas. At a memorial service for Sheikh Yassin, he declared that the Israelis will not know security. "We will fight them until the liberation of Palestine, the whole of Palestine." Publicly addressing the military wing of Hamas, Rantisi suggested, "The door is open for you to strike all places, all the time and using all means." Rantisi was himself killed by Israel on April 17, 2004 in an assassination almost identical to Yassin's. On August 31, 2004, at least 15 Israeli people were killed and 80 injured in a suicide attack against 2 Israeli buses in Beersheba. Hamas stated the attack was a revenge for the assassination of Rantisi and Yassin. Following the bombing, an estimated 20,000 Hamas supporters in Gaza took to Gaza streets, celebrating the successful attack. Israeli, Shaul Mofaz, the Israeli defense minister, branded Yassin the Palestinian bin Laden, and said, "If we have to balance how many more terrorists Yassin would have sent, how many terror attacks he would have approved, if we weigh this on the scales, we acted rightly." Avraham Porras, Israel's interior minister and member of the centrist Shinui party, said he believed the assassination of Yassin was a bad idea because "I am afraid of a revenge coming from the Palestinian side, from the Hamas side." Shimon Peres, then leader of the labor opposition, was critical of the assassination, suggesting that it could lead to an escalation of terror. Arab World, King Abdullah II of Jordan described the assassination as a crime. Lebanon's President Emil Ahad vehemently denounced the Israeli act as a crime, which will not succeed in liquidating the Palestinian cause. Emir of Kuwait Sabah al-Ahmad al-Jabbar al-Sabah said, "Violence will increase now because violence always breeds violence." The head of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, Mohammed Ekf, described Yassin as a martyr, and his assassination a cowardly operation. Weston, Jack Straw, then British Foreign Secretary, said, "All of us understand Israel's need to protect itself and it is fully entitled to do that against the terrorism which affects it, within international law. But it is not entitled to go in for this kind of unlawful killing, and we condemn it. It is unacceptable, it is unjustified, and it is very unlikely to achieve its objectives. In response to a question about the killing, U.S. President George W. Bush responded, "As far as the Middle East, it's a troubled region, and the attacks were troubling. There needs to be a focused, concerted effort by all parties to fight terror. Any country has a right to defend itself from terror. Israel has the right to defend herself from terror. And as she does so, I hope she keeps consequences in mind as to how to make sure we stay on the path to peace." United States Representative to the United Nations John Negroponte stated that the USA was deeply troubled by this action by the government of Israel, while asserting that the U.S. would not support any UN Security Council statement condemning Israel's assassination of Yassin that did not include a condemnation of Hamas terrorist attacks. According to his statement to the UN Security Council, see also Hamas, Abdel Aziz al-Rantisi, Muslim Brotherhood, list of Israeli civilian casualties in the Second Intifada, notes and references. External links, reports on death, IDF strike kills Hamas leader Ahmed Yassin, Sharon was after the Yassin's murder at the Wayback Machine, assassination of Sheikh Yassin opened Pandora's box, interactive guide, Sheikh Yassin assassination The Guardian. Profiles of Yassin, BBC obituary, Guardian obituary. UN response, US vetoes UN resolution condemning Israel for Hamas killing.